Welcome into the newest episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast. We're glad to have you here listening to this one. I'm very excited. I'm back from my month of being elsewhere. Remember, as always, you can always check out the Hoth Hangout podcast over on Spotify, Apple, and wherever you get your podcasts. Also, check us out on the socials, including Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Hoth Hangout on each one of those. Joey, what's going on, man? How are you?
Pretty good. I am glad to have you back. It's been a long time, friend, and it's good to have the two of us back here on the podcast. But you did forget on YouTube as well. You could subscribe to us on YouTube.
Oh, true.
Did you know that we are just a couple of subscribers away from 150
I saw that.
subscribers?
I saw that. If anyone is listening and is not subscribed on YouTube, what are we at now? Like 147 or something
I
like
think
that?
so, yeah. So we're just a couple away. So click that like button and click that subscribe button, and we're gonna get
Dude.
150 real quick. I was thinking maybe we should do some type of celebration once we get to 200, maybe like a live stream or something like that. I think that would be a lot of fun.
A 200-hour live stream where we're just watching Star Wars the whole time.
I mean, that sounds like a weekend to me, honestly. But how was your trip? Tell me all about it.
It was fun. I was at a summer camp for almost a month, about 3.5 weeks. Definitely came back with more of a tan and more facial hair than I had before, but feeling good. I will say I was having some serious movie withdrawals while I was at camp.
Mm.
Like the first thing I did when I got back, I've seen 3 movies this week. I saw Mission Impossible, I
Oh,
saw the new Spider-Verse, and I saw the new Indiana Jones. Uh,
that's a good three right there.
it was a
3
good
weeks.
batch, yeah, and I'm going to see, Barbie and Oppenheimer this week. It's a good
Oh
time for
wow.
movies. Um,
Yes, absolutely.
but yeah, it was a good trip. I am, excited to be back though and talk some Star Wars, especially because we got a lot of information while I was gone too, regarding Ahsoka and whatnot, but I don't know if we already looped the video or not. I may have missed it if we did, but there was a yeah, there's a if you're watching the video version of the podcast, there's a short 5 or 6 second clip of me wiping out on an inner tube while I was gone the past week. So enjoy that for your,
Yeah,
for your viewing
I like at the
pleasure.
very end you see the internet flying.
Yeah, it flies back in at the very end. Yeah. So that was one of the many things that I was doing the past few weeks. But like I said, glad to be back and
Yes.
excited to be talking some Star Wars with you. How was the last 2 or 3 weeks? I managed to catch both of the guest hosts, some
Mhm.
great podcasts while I was gone. How was that?
It was a lot of fun. I got a little bit, you gotta ask Gibbo. I was a little nervous leading the entire discussion the entire time, but it was a lot of fun. It was a way to. I saw your side of the conversation. Normally, you would lead it and ask questions to me, and now I was doing the same to them. So I thought it was a lot of fun. Alex and Chris came by, had a great time talking some collecting with Chris, and that's my something
Mhm.
I really had a lot of fun talking about. And with Alex, we talked about just growing up with Star Wars and what it means to kind of who we are today and the people that we've become because Star Wars was introduced so early into our lives. So if you haven't yet, check out those episodes 39 and 40 on YouTube and all the podcast platforms.
Definitely, and we'll try to remember to link their channel information as well in the show notes for this episode too. Speaking of, by the way, we're over 40 episodes. Isn't that wild?
That is wild. Yeah, I was kind of sad, I'll admit, when you were gone and we hit 40, and I'm like, "Oh man, we should have this should have been the two of us," but it's fine. Now we can do that for 50.
Yeah,
Stop
there we go. 50 is a good
stop
number.
leaving though. You got to stop leaving. And
I'm actually gonna be, sick for podcast number 50. I don't know if
oh,
I
come
told
on.
you or not.
I knew it.
Um, well, yeah, should we hop into the Star Wars news? Because there was quite a bit of it the past week or 2. Uh,
Absolutely.
I think first off, what we wanted to start with was the Emmys. The nominations were announced for the Emmys, and Star Wars coming in with, I think, 23 nominations in total, if I'm not mistaken, 8 of which belonging to Andor, another 5 of which belonging to Kenobi, and another 9 of which belonging to Mandalorian, the main ones of which standing out being that Andor was nominated for the best outstanding drama series, Kenobi was nominated for the best or for the outstanding limited or anthology series. And then I was trying to pick out what the most notable Mandalorian nomination would have been. A lot of it is like sound composition and music composition and cinematography. But then also another notable one in regards to Andor was an outstanding writing nomination. So
Mhm.
I think I am most excited to see how Andor performs at the Emmys this year.
Yes.
I really want it to win the writing for the prison episode. You and I
Mhm.
briefly talked about that before we started, but
Right.
uh, yeah, I hope they take home best drama series. I actually don't know the list of the other shows nominated, but
Right, and we mentioned that a little bit before we started recording. It's really up against really depends on who they're up against to see if they are able to have an actual shot in the and like I said, I don't even if you name the other shows that are out, I prob are against these, shows, these Star Wars shows, I probably wouldn't even know those anyway, but either way, it's super exciting to see all 3. I with the amount of divisiveness that Kenobi kinda brought to the Star Wars fandom, I'm interested in hearing what other people have to say that it's, nominated for some Emmys, including Outstanding Limited or Anthology Series. That's a pretty interesting one.
yeah, and, as we were talking about it, Gibbo also sent us a list of the full shows or full, TV series nominated for outstanding drama. There's some good shows on this list.
Yeah.
A few of them I've seen and love. In addition to Andor, Better Call Saul, Yellow Jackets, House of the Dragon, The Crown, The Last of Us, Succession, and The White Lotus. I don't think they nominated enough shows for this category. Uh,
Yikes. I mean, I'm aware of pretty much all of those. I haven't maybe watched all of those, so, that's gonna be a hard list, I think, to go up against for the best drama, right?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised about not to get too off track about The Last of Us. I heard that wasn't as popular with people as they would have expected it to be,
Oh,
but
really? I know
yeah,
the video game series is very popular
yeah,
with
the game is
the gaming
huge, of
industry.
course, but and then House of the Dragon is another one I watched and I loved that one, but, anyways, I think it'd be cool if Andor ends up winning that, so, all the best to all the Star Wars nominations.
Yeah,
All
the
3 of them in
23
total.
23 what other seems like 23 is an important number, in sports. I can't remember. Maybe
No one
it's
from
a
Chicago or
no
anything
one from
like
Chicago
that.
Bulls is,
Yeah.
number 23 anymore.
Oh, I was thinking, "Oh, I know who it is. It's LeBron James' number, right?"
Alright, thanks everybody. This will be the last episode that I'll be on.
The original 23, right? No.
That's right, yeah. Oh, no. No, 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 my heart.
In addition to receiving many nominations at this year's Emmys, which I'm not sure this article doesn't list the date. I would assume it's sometime in the next month or so. Um, but in addition to receiving many Emmy nominations this year for various Star Wars series, more in the realm of Disney, there was I think 4 or 5-minute interview that went live, I think about a week ago at the time of this recording, maybe over the week no, the beginning of the week last week. It was an interview of Bob Iger, Disney's CEO. It was kind of a joint interview, not necessarily focused on Star Wars, but it definitely was geared, mainly with Star Wars and Marvel, were the Disney or I'm sorry, Marvel, Star Wars, and Pixar were kind of the 3 big ones that came up in the conversation with whoever the man was who was interviewing him. Um, and it was something to the effect of him acknowledging that Disney has had a lot of shortcomings in the recent, months, even years, you could say, basically since COVID, and they also talked about that a little bit, how the model of movies and shows has had to adapt and change in the past 3 years, largely because of COVID. Did you have any lingering thoughts after watching that interview based on the things he said?
I thought that I was waiting for Liam Neeson to come out and just, uh, just agree with him and everything. No, what's more interesting to me is that that interview happened now. Well, actually, I don't know when it happened, but the way that they're showing it now, and we still have this writer strike that's going on,
Yeah.
and there was nothing really asked about that. And I don't know if that was something that wasn't allowed to be asked or whatever, but I mean, going back to what he said about Star Wars content and all that, I mean, I think you and I have said time and time again that we are excited for any Star Wars, whatever it is. And the fact that he has kind of said publicly at this point that they're going to pull back on it makes me sad a little bit. And yeah, maybe they weren't hits. I think that was one of the things he may have mentioned, that they weren't all, they weren't all hits. And that's kind of the problem here. And from a business perspective, sure, I understand that, if you need this to be successful at every level, but yeah, as a fan, I obviously I don't like hearing that. I definitely want more Star Wars if we can, but I do understand the business side of it. And if the numbers aren't coming in where they want, then that's just the truth, and that's what he has to answer to, unfortunately.
Yeah, I almost feel like I almost feel like the clumping of Star Wars with Marvel and Pixar would be viewed in a separate manner. 'Cause I personally I don't know how big of a Marvel fan you would consider. I'm not a huge Marvel fan, I would say, but I watch all the
Mm-hmm.
movies, and I just feel like okay, let me do it this way. If I was to give you Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars in the past 5 years, which of those 3 would you say is the most diluted?
Marvel,
Yeah,
for
I would
sure.
say the same thing.
Hmm.
And I would probably say next would probably be Pixar.
Hmm.
Although I haven't even seen Elemental or what
Hmm.
was the recent movie before Elemental?
Was that Turning Red? Was that Pixar?
Yeah, but I think there was one oh,
Oh,
Lightyear? Was
s
that
there was that, and wasn't the Soul one? Was Soul also one of
Soul? No,
those?
I think Soul was before the pandemic, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? Okay. I think
Anyways,
you're right, I think you're right, yes,
I'm
yes,
just
yes.
not as knowledgeable on a lot of the new Pixar stuff, so I guess I can't say that expressly, but just from stuff I've read about how people feel about Pixar in the past 5 or 6 years and box office sales and whatnot. Basically, what I'm trying to say is I think Marvel is the most diluted, maybe Pixar next, and then I don't honestly feel like Star Wars is in the same category as those other 2.
Mhm.
Sure, it might be a little diluted from what it should or could be,
Right.
but I think that's mainly just because so many, especially Disney Plus has moved towards the streaming model rather than the movie model. Like we haven't had a film in 4 years for Star Wars and
Right, yeah.
probably won't have a film for at least 2 more years, so
Right.
I don't know. I understand his criticism because he's the CEO of the entire company, Disney.
Mhm.
But also, I think it's a little bit unfair to lump Star Wars in with something like Marvel, which I think is very diluted.
Right, and I think with at least with the content from Star Wars, you're sticking with the same types of characters. You're having
Mhm.
The Mandalorian have several seasons. You'll have Bad Batch have a few seasons. So you're sticking with, these characters that are developing over time, and you're understanding them a little bit better. It feels like every single character in Marvel are getting their own TV series, and it's 1 or 2 seasons. So, when we're talking about diluting it, I think we just have to remember that, yeah, maybe the Star Wars series are going longer, but there's less of them.
Yeah.
And the Marvel ones, they may be going shorter. I'm not quite sure. Like Hawkeye had one, and the red what's her name? Scarlet Witch had one. So there's each of these have like these 1 2 season episode 1 or 2 season shows, and there's just so many of them. So I think that's part of it. And like you said, there are still making movies like Ant-Man, um, and Wakanda Forever. And so there's this like they continue to knock out all these movies. And I forget if he mentioned it or if I read it somewhere else that yeah, Star Wars hasn't had a movie since 2019 or whatever. So I think also there may be a little bias for you and me because we actually do want more Star Wars.
Yeah, that was the other
And
thing I was gonna say.
right, but I mean, but the fact of the matter is there's a ton of Marvel out there. So I agree. To lump those 2 together with Pixar, maybe not exactly apples and oranges, but I think it needs to be said too, I think. I mean, those are the big, properties that Disney is in charge of. So he's gonna hit those heavy hitters first.
Yeah. Not to dwell too much on Marvel, because I guess we are a Star Wars podcast, but
Right.
I can't remember the last time I watched a Marvel show, especially. or even a Marvel movie that wasn't a Spider-Man movie, and I just walked
Mm,
away from it thinking, "That was really good." I can't even
mhm,
tell you the last Marvel show. Maybe Moon Knight was the last time that I, like, actually got through a season of a Marvel show. I tend to
mhm.
just, like, watch 2 or 3 episodes, and I'm like, "Ah, I don't care enough to finish this."
Right, right, right.
Which is not the case with Star Wars shows with me and with you personally, as we have mentioned, but maybe we're a little bit biased, I don't know.
Right.
But, I think in the long run, I like to think that this is a good thing for Star Wars,
Mhm.
even though we'll receive less Star Wars content. There was also, like, a rumor coupled in with this that there might be, like, turnover at Lucasfilm as a byproduct
Mm.
of his comments. The main one, of course, that people for really years at this point, some
I
people,
wonder
not
who.
all people, yeah, have been vying
Hmm.
for is whether Kathleen Kennedy will remain in her
Oh,
position or not,
what?
so I just
Wow, I can't believe that name was lumped in there. That's a shock.
I just don't know how much removing her from that situation will
I
have creatively on the decision-making
I r
process.
I understand that people want to target somebody specific for things like that,
Yeah,
and for with her being the top, I understand it, but I like you said, I don't think creatively speaking,
unless you, like,
that's
throw Dave Filoni in that spot or something like
right, right, exactly. Yeah, so
then he's not gonna have time to do all the other stuff he does if he's in that. I don't know.
and I don't know if you've seen, I know I'm going way off topic. I've seen Dave Filoni without a hat lately, and that's very, very jarring. I don't understand it. He's been in some interviews without the hat on, and I'm like,
What
"What are
does
we
this
even doing
mean?
here?"
What does this mean for the future of Star Wars if Dave isn't wearing
Exactly.
a hat?
It was probably Kathleen Kennedy's doing.
Yes.
So
He's like, "Dave, you take that thing off for those interviews. Here at Lucasfilm, we're professionals." No, so there is, I guess, a slight chance that there is turnover within Lucasfilm and Disney as a whole, but I guess that remains to be seen in the coming months
yeah,
and maybe even the coming years, so
and also with this writer strike again, you never know. You never know what's
yeah.
gonna happen.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Bob Iger, everybody. Another smaller piece of news that I guess I didn't hear about this until you, well, via our pre-podcast notes, informed me that there's another season of this coming out in
Mhm,
like 2 weeks, which I
mhm.
saw that and I was like, "Dang, that was fast." So they must have probably developed this alongside the first season,
I
or
guess
maybe they
so, yeah.
made it that fast because the first season of this just came out like what, 2 months ago?
Mhm.
So, for those that don't know, Young Jedi Adventures is kind of a really the first Star Wars children's show of its kind. I think people like to call Clone Wars and Rebels kids shows, but
Mm,
and,
mhm.
they are in a sense, but,
They're
not to the
animated.
they're animated. I think people see animation who, don't watch animated shows and they're like, "Oh, kids show." But of course, this is like I would say this is on the equivalent of, like, Dora, maybe just like a slight step higher, where it's like, "How can we help the person in need? I know, we should save them," that sort of
Right,
thing,
yeah.
so, I wish I could remember. Nubs was one of them.
Yeah, Nubs is
Uh,
the favorite.
yeah, he was the one I liked a lot.
Wasn't Kai, like, the lead?
Kai, that was his name, and then
Kai
what
the
was the
lead, and
girl's name?
Liz
Liz.
was
You're good with the
the
names.
girl. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, if you haven't checked out that show, or if you've got kids who you're
Mhm.
wanting to get into Star Wars, it's a good hopping in
What's
point.
what's funny on this last part that you talked when we were talking about Bob Iger, you said, for the most part, we finish all of our shows. Yeah, we did not finish the first
I was gonna say that too.
the
This is
first
probably
Young
the
Jedi Adventures.
the only Star Wars show that I did not finish once I started watching it.
It's not for us. It's not for us.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's not a bad show. It's just
No, no.
like it's hard to watch a show developed for a 6-year-old when you're not 6.
Ah, yes.
Uh, oh, I'm also okay, Gibbo is also making a note for us. This is the cool part about having Gibbo here with us. By the way, again, another shout out to Gibbo.
Gibbo?
Gibbo is letting us know that it's not a second season. It's just basically the second part of the first season.
Yeah, the continuation of the season.
Yeah. So, Gibbo also says 6 more episodes will be released on Disney Plus. Disney Junior? What is Disney Junior? Why do I not know what that is? Is that just a portion of Disney Plus?
Yeah, no, it's a portion of, like, the, network television Disney. You could have,
Ah,
I think that's another Disney that you can subscribe to.
Gotcha. So I guess it sounds like 6 episodes released on the 2nd, and then more episodes released throughout the rest of the year. So, more Young Jedi Adventures coming
Thanks,
very
Gibbo.
soon. Maybe we'll hop back into it and,
We listen, we didn't even read this entire article that we we couldn't even bother ourselves to finish the first part of the season, and now we can read all the rest of this article. Thank
what
you,
if,
Gibbo.
what if what if in Young Jedi there's some sort of lore defining thing that happens that then influences, like, the rest of the Star Wars universe?
Well, now we gotta watch it all.
We gotta watch it then, yeah. So new episodes of that coming on August 2nd. Be on the lookout for that as well. And then something that I know you hold very near and dear to your heart as part of our last news segment of this podcast. Some exclusive Star Wars Funkos were announced for San Diego Comic Con this upcoming weekend or a week and a half from now. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it might be this
This
weekend
weekend?
actually, yeah. So yeah, they got some new Funkos that are announced. So pretty much every big convention will always have some exclusives. Whether it's from Hasbro, from Funko. So for this particular piece, it's for the Funko company is creating some specific exclusives for the San Diego Comic Con. The first one we have here is Wicket. Of course, it's from Return of the Jedi, celebrating the 40 years. So he's got his little rope with with a little beanbag there for the for to go against the stormtroopers there, so that's super cute. The next one is a younger Leia Organa from Kenobi
That's cool.
holding the I think the her droid was named Lola, if I'm not mistaken.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, holding Lola. I think that's a pretty cool one. It's very fun. I think I know they did come out with some Kenobi Funkos already. I don't remember if there was a young Leia in there, but we got the young Leia here with the green jacket, kind of reminiscent of the green outfit she wore in Return of the Jedi as well, and with the hair up. So, very cool piece there for her. And I think the last one was it a Vader one? Yeah, it was the Vader one. So these are kind of fun because I think there are two versions of this Vader one. There's the regular all black version, and then there's like I think this might be a glow in the dark version, the one on the right here. So there's two versions out there. The one on the right is a little bit more exclusive, oh not exclusive, but a little bit more rare. So those are called the chase variants. So you're looking to get those. Sometimes those are, one per case, one every two cases, or something like that. So to be able to pull out one of those is great. So I think the way these work, there's in the background, there's like a little soda bottle. They actually put the Funko inside that soda bottle, so you actually can't see which one you're getting until you
Ah,
open up the you like I think the top like rotates out and you could remove the Funko that's from there. So I think that's how that works. I haven't seen any of those live, but I think that's how those are. So if you are able to pull one of those, glow in the dark, possibly glow in the dark ones, that's going to be some nice money for you. So good luck to anybody who's going to San Diego Comic Con and looking for these exclusives. Normally, those actually go up in price as well because they're exclusives. They'll only create maybe 2,000, 3,000 piece units, and they'll be a little bit more rare for the collectors out there like me. So if I had to choose one, I think I would like to get I think I'd like to get the Leia one because I think that's just a cool looking figure. The I like the her having the droid and for and it's Leia. I mean, how do you not love Leia? So I'm excited to see some other collectors pick these up, and hopefully one day I'll pick one of those up too.
nice. This might be a dumb question.
Hmm.
The Darth Vader Funko,
Yeah,
how it comes in the soda bottle,
yeah.
is it
It's
is
still small
it
scale. It's not like a 2 liter bottle like that
but is
big.
it
Yeah.
in the soda?
I mean, it's not soda. It's just a bottle. There's not actually liquid in there.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
don't you have to, like,
yeah.
clean it off so it doesn't get sticky and, like, how does
No,
that
no.
work?
No, it's just a bottle that's inside that the Funko is actually inside, so it's like packaging for it.
I got you.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, those are cool. What was the first one again? We had Darth
It
Vader,
was
Leia,
Wicket.
and
It was a Wicket,
oh,
yeah.
Wicket. I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that one. That one's
Yeah,
really
that's a good
cute.
one. I like the teeth. There's a good job on the
Yeah,
teeth.
yeah. Yeah.
And
I
whenever
feel like I should start a collection of Star Wars Funkos.
yeah, I'll do it. So then we could talk about it together because I've got a couple, so we could we could share stories.
Just a couple?
Yeah. Whenever I see Ewoks, and I don't know if you do the same, I always notice their eyes, and I think about, what was it, the later versions of Return of the Jedi when they started blinking? So I
Yeah.
keep that whenever I see Ewok, for some reason, I think about that. If this blinked, that'd be super scary.
Ooh, blinking Funkos.
You heard it
Could
here.
be a
Let's do it.
big invention, yeah.
Yep.
Well, that basically concludes all of our news. We had a little bit more today than normal. And then also worth noting that at the time that this podcast comes out, San Diego Comic-Con is today. So, the 20th through the 23rd of July, 2023.
Have fun.
If anyone is gonna be in San Diego, let us know in the comments of the podcast episode. Well, for the rest of today's podcast, we are going to be discussing and breaking down, maybe even theorizing a little bit in the coming weeks, everything associated with Ahsoka. We are officially just over a month from the release. It comes out on
Ooh, 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 ooh.
August 23rd. Isn't that crazy? We're
Uh,
only a month
it
away.
took so long to get here, it feels like.
Yeah. While I was away for the last few podcast episodes, there was a trailer released, and we'll get into that here in a second. But um, kind of, I guess, as a brief overview for anyone that maybe is like, I only watch episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, um, and
Why you say it
you're a
like that?
yeah, and you're a movie only person, and you're like, why is there so much hype about this show? I don't understand. Like, who is this person? Ahsoka originally debuted in the Clone Wars animated show, which I guess has been what 15 years roughly since that came out.
Sounds about right.
Um, and she was the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker. Eventually, leaves the Jedi Order, and then she comes back around in Rebels and like has to fight Anakin. Of course, when he's Darth Vader at that point, and so that's like the very short uh, reasoning for why this is so exciting. She was also very much so a fan favorite, especially within the Clone Wars. Did you know actually that fans did not really like Ahsoka
Mhm.
the first season of Clone Wars?
Yeah, and I tend to agree with them
Yeah.
because I mean, especially in because I believe her first appearance was in the Clone Wars movie, is that right?
Yes. Yes, it was
Yeah,
the movie, not the show, yeah.
yeah. So in the Clone Wars movie, if you guys didn't know, there was a Clone Wars movie. I don't think it went did it go to theaters and all
I
that
think it
too,
did,
or
yeah, and
Oh, it
I
did,
don't think
okay.
it did in I don't think it did particularly well in terms maybe it did financially, but at least I know on Rotten Tomatoes, it does not have a great score. I can
Mhm.
look that up while we're talking.
Yeah, and, even from that if that is your introduction into it, she was a little snarky, she was a little, bratty to start, I think, but as the series went on, you learn to love her, you learn to understand her learn to understand her and her motivations and to see the Jedi Order really trust her. So I think that was a big part of why I really enjoy her character because she was somebody who didn't seem like came from a lot, and then all of a sudden was a really big part of the Jedi Order and as well as the Clone Wars.
So the show, The Clone Wars, cumulatively is like a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes,
Mhm.
but the movie is an 18%.
18. Wow, that's way lower than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and even the audience score is a 40%.
Yeah,
So,
right.
I think oftentimes with films, it can be like, "Oh, the audience liked it, but the critics didn't," or "The critics liked it and the audience didn't." But this is like, no one liked it,
Right,
which
right, yeah.
is it's not a good it's not a good indicator of how incredible her character is if that was the only exposure you had
Right.
to, Ahsoka in Star Wars. So, if you're that one person out there who watched the 2008 Clone Wars movie, which is notoriously not a great film,
Mhm.
and was like, "Man, I don't get what the hype is about Ahsoka."
Right,
You should
yes.
watch the TV show because it's much
Yeah.
more highly rated, much more enjoyable, and, her character is just really important, not only to
Yeah.
Star Wars, but particularly to the story of who Anakin is and the
Mhm.
development of his character.
Right.
She plays a pretty big role there.
Definitely one of the favorites of this podcast for sure.
Yes, yes, and, so much so that one of the 2 of us may or may not have named a pet after her,
Oh,
uh, I'll
is that
I'll
true?
I'll raise my hand on that one,
Okay, yes.
yeah, if you're watching the video version of the podcast, this picture is, I think, almost 3 years old now, which is kinda hard to believe, but there's a picture of when I got my dog. Her name is Ahsoka for
Oh,
short,
mhm.
and picked her up, and this she's actually, I think, like, 6 weeks old in this picture, but, at the time, I had only had her for about an hour or 2, so,
Ah,
um
does that breed grow pretty big?
yeah, she's considerably bigger now. I think she weighs, like, 50 pounds,
Oh,
something
wow.
like that. Yeah, so
It's a good sized dog.
she's not a puppy anymore. But, she's a lot of fun, and Star Wars does run deep, so much so that I named my dog after this character we're
I
discussing today.
you're not the first and you won't be the last to name them after, a Star Wars character. In fact, let us know who else has named their pets
Yeah,
after Star Wars characters. I'd love to hear it.
that'd be a fun episode of the podcast, is to bring on, like, a bunch of different guests who all have pets that are named after Star
Ah,
Wars characters,
yeah.
and we have to match the pet with the guest.
Oh, I love it.
We're gonna start the early, production phases of that episode, maybe
Yes.
get some people on board if anyone's interested.
Nice, I like it.
But yeah, that's little Soka. That's actually before I even owned her. That second picture
Oh,
is
okay.
when she was about a week old, I think, so
And those are full-size pumpkins, right?
yeah, yeah, full si she's actually the size of King Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, um, Ahsoka is a character that is monumental in Star Wars and definitely important to me personally as I named a pet after her. So
Mhm.
another reason for my my gushing of the character of Ahsoka Tano. And also, we briefly mentioned that while I was gone, you did a reaction as well to the trailer of Ahsoka, and this is something that I had to watch on, like, really cruddy Wi-Fi while I was gone, and I was like, "Why does it keep pausing? Just let me watch the whole 2
Oh,
minutes all the way
no.
through." So, once I finally got it to load, I watched it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that was awesome." What was one of the biggest takeaways that you had from
Oh.
watching it?
I mean, obviously, my big thing was, you know how much I love the character Sabine, so that was probably my I'm always excited to see her. It seems like in this trailer, and, this has been talked to a lot about, over on the internet, about on Twitter or wherever, about what it we kind of find out that maybe Ahsoka was training Sabine at some point, because she ends up calling her master at some point during this trailer. And
Mhm.
if you are watching the video podcast, we are watching the trailer now as well. Um, it was just very interesting to hear that part. I feel like that was a pretty big reveal. Um, we did know that Sabine was wielding a lightsaber at some point. But to actually hear that she was maybe being formally trained by Ahsoka at some point as well, was pretty hard hitting. I think this is actually the point where they mention it here.
Yeah, it kinda threw me for a loop, honestly, when I think that was the point in the trailer where I was like, "Wait, she called her master? Wait, what?"
Hmm.
Do you think they're gonna make, or maybe she already was, do you think they're gonna make Sabine force sensitive?
And that's obviously one of the discussions now that's being had on Twitter is that actually going to happen? I don't know.
Do
I
we
don't
have an
know.
example of someone in the Star Wars universe currently who wields a lightsaber who's not for I mean, maybe General Grievous is the best example?
Right.
Um, so I guess you don't have to be force sensitive to wield a lightsaber.
Right.
Would it be, in your opinion, would you prefer her to be force sensitive or not be force sensitive?
I
Would it
kind of
take anything away from Rebels if
I
she is force
right, and that's exactly what I was gonna say. I think initially I would keep her not force sensitive because we already have, what was it, 4 seasons of Rebels, and to kind of all of a sudden drop this bomb on us would it just seems I don't know. I wouldn't like that as much until she would bust out some force, some force, force pushes or something. Then I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. But uh, I don't know. I would rather her not be force sensitive, and maybe she's just training her in other ways. But yeah, and part of me is wondering, is this a bait and switch type of thing? Like this isn't actually what is happening, And maybe Sabine is calling her master kind of tongue in cheek, and you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's
what if
just
it's sarcastic? Yeah.
right, exactly. And then like the whole, the scene with her fighting that other character, I forget her name, where she,
Shin, I think. Shin, I
yes,
think is how
where it looks like she's trying to use the Force. That's, like, actually something else happening altogether, So that it wouldn't be the first time that Star Wars has shown one thing and done the exact opposite or done, for instance, assuming Finn was the kind of the hero in the Force Awakens with the lightsaber, in that trailer, you kind of showed him kind of being that. Maybe he's the Jedi and things like that. So it wouldn't be the first time that Star Wars would do something like that. So maybe it's a bait and switch type of situation. But going back to what you asked, yeah, I wouldn't I wouldn't give her the Force sensitivity needed to become a Jedi.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you on that one. I mean, I'm not one of those people who's like, "She can't be force sensitive."
Yeah, same. I'm the
Uh,
same.
and I think I would be okay with that being part of the show's story, is
Hmm.
her, like, being trained by Ahsoka, and even if she's not force sensitive, like, still teaching her those skills, kinda like you said. Or like you said, it could be a bait and switch, we don't know, so
Right.
it kind of remains to be seen. I don't think that monumentally affects how I feel about the show or the plot of the show. I think
Hmm.
I'm interested in Sabine as a character, obviously, but I think I'm just most interested in Ahsoka's arc, particularly how it pertains to Thrawn, which we did get our first full
Yes.
face shot of Lars Mikkelsen donning the Thrawn look. Definitely very menacing. Um, I brought out the Thrawn novel as well.
Nice.
Does that
Oh,
resemble Lars, or does Lars
I,
resemble that?
I think so. I think that was based off of Lars for sure. That model there.
You think it was?
Maybe I don't know.
I think I've had this book. I've had this book like 2 years now and still,
Oh, well,
have
it's
not
time.
started it, but
It's time.
I'm planning to read it in the next month before the show comes out, so
Oh, I did want to hear your thoughts on this. So
yeah.
I forget if it was, I think it was last week, the last week's episode that we discovered that the Ahsoka season 1 is basically going to be like a Rebels season
Rebels
5,
5,
right? So
yeah.
yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it makes sense. I would prefer that, honestly.
Hmm.
I think because that is the case, I think we're gonna be getting a lot of, I think it's called The World Between Worlds, and kinda
Mm-hmm.
information regarding that. There's a point in that trailer where, like, all these rocks, and it's when, the Magistrate, Balin, and Shin are all, like, there, and
Hmm.
it's some vague, ambiguous statement that Balin says about Thrawn, like, or I think Shin says, "What's gonna happen when we find Thrawn?" And Balin says, "Power," or something, something very ambiguous, and
Right.
you're
Yeah.
like, "What the heck does that mean?" So,
Right. Yeah.
anyways, that scene is, like, apparently, at least what I thought when I saw it, is that it reminded me of the gateway or the portal to the world between worlds that we see,
Hmm.
in Rebels season 4. So, I would like to get more information on that. Something I think we talked about when
Yeah.
Ahsoka was first announced is that I'm also a little bit wary of how much they try to include that in the plot of the show,
Hmm.
only because there is an essence, while it's not time travel, it's something time travel adjacent,
Right.
and so anytime something like that is introduced in a show, you're always like, I don't
Yeah.
know, I think it could mess it up if you do that." But,
Right.
I think I've read some stuff on how Dave kind of views the world between worlds. I'm saying it right? I
Yeah, I
don't
believe that's right. I believe that's right.
I always wanna say the War of the Worlds. I'm like, "Nope,
Yeah.
that's not the right thing." Um, but I'm excited to see the inclusion of that in the show. I wanna learn more about kind of how it functions, how it works.
Mhm.
There's a great picture if you're watching the video version of the podcast of what Thrawn will be
So
looking like
cool.
in the
It's
show.
so cool. I cannot
It
wait.
it is scarily accurate to,
Yeah.
some of those original depictions of Thrawn from I think it's
Let
the Heir
me
to the Empire novel.
let me ask you this, is there anything that you saw that maybe you were like, "Oh, that might not hit like I want it to," 'cause I have one.
Oh, let me think. I'm curious what yours is. A couple maybe this will be one of the things that you're thinking of. There was a point in the trailer I don't think this is what you're gonna say, but I think there was a point in the trailer where Balin, is battling Ahsoka,
Mhm,
and he says, "Anakin spoke very highly of you." So, I think we already knew Balin was a former Jedi, but now what we know, what we didn't before, is that he definitely knew, or maybe currently knows. Well, I guess not currently, but he knew at one point Anakin, because he
mhm,
says Anakin spoke very highly of you when he's talking to
mhm,
Ahsoka. So I thought that was interesting. That kind of places him, on I would assume on Coruscant or maybe somewhere
right,
nearby at the time of Revenge of the Sith.
mhm.
Maybe we'll get a scene like that. That'd be pretty neat. Ezra's appearance is another notable thing in this
Oh,
trailer
yes, yes,
where
yes.
he's on the little holocom or whatever you call it, and he's talking to Sabine. I don't know how much of him we'll actually get to see in the show.
Mhm,
My guess is that it won't be a ton,
right,
um, but maybe he'll come in at the end. I don't even think we're gonna get a ton of Thrawn, to be honest with you.
mhm,
I think Ezra and Thrawn will
right,
both be, like, late season additions to this
right,
show. Um, Another thing would be that Hera's whole role in this is, like, convincing Mon Mothma,
mhm.
but I don't know. I'm curious what the thing you're thinking of.
I'm I'm worried about Hera. I am a 'cause, like, she's one of my favorite characters for sure that
Yeah.
came out of Rebels.
How are
I
you worried about her in what sense?
Well, 1, I'm not thrilled at her design. She just doesn't look
Okay.
like Hera to me.
Mhm,
So I'm a little bit worried about that, and I keep whenever I watch the anything with Ahsoka, that's kind of what I've been thinking, like, Hera's just not exactly how I was hoping would turn out as far as the design. And also now I mean, I am excited to see the Ghost. I'm excited to see, the ships that they're in. So I am excited with that. But also kind of piggybacking what you were saying with Ezra and Thrawn, the use of them. How much are we actually going to see them? So I'm a little worried about that because I know it's just the trailer, but we've seen now Ezra a couple of times with the hologram and all that. So you see that they are going to be talking about him a little bit, but yeah, the use of him, the use of Thrawn, because when we found out like the Emperor was going to be in Bad Batch or Saul was going to be um was it Andor? Like we were just kind of waiting for those moments, but they just didn't show up as often. But I
mhm.
think with me, I think the big thing would be with Hera. How are they going to use her? How because I haven't seen a ton from the trailers. I think it's very they're showing a lot of Ahsoka, of course. They're showing a ton of Sabine actually too. So,
Yeah,
and also the the two, what is it? Shin
and, Balin. I
and
think
Balin, yeah.
I think the
I
way the
think I
show is
think
gonna work.
those 4.
Yes, I think it's gonna be, like, diametric parallel stories of, like, master and apprentice more or less.
Mhm.
Where, like, Balin and Shin are on this side, maybe
Mhm.
the magistrates doing stuff with them,
Yeah.
and then, Ahsoka and Sabine are over here trying to, like, go after the same thing, and, like, Hera's helping them, and so I
Right.
think Hera is not going to play this primary role, like, that
Right, yeah.
maybe you would hope she would.
Come on.
Uh, I wouldn't even be shocked if we go episodes without seeing
Oh,
her.
I would, yeah. I'm fully expecting that and trying to
Yeah.
prepare myself.
I think I see her being almost like this episode 1 and 2 character, and then
Mhm.
as Ahsoka and Sabine get further on in the adventure and maybe even begin training, I think we'll probably see Hera phase out of a frequency being shown in the
Yeah.
show, but again, that's just a guess.
Right, yeah.
Mary
And that
Elizabeth
obviously
Winstead,
that's
by
what we're
the
talking
way,
about.
the
Yes, Mary Elizabeth
actress,
Winstead. Mhm.
Ewan McGregor's wife.
Yes, I love
So,
that.
yeah, Star Wars royalty family right there. There's that hologram of Ezra, by the way, for those of you
Yeah.
watching the video podcast.
Yeah, if this is the only bit we see of him, like, throughout the entire series, I would be kind of upset, to be honest.
I would expect him to definitely be in the series, whether
Yeah.
that's this season or not, I don't know. I think when
Mhm.
we left off Rebels, he was, searching for Thrawn, if I'm not mistaken.
Wasn't he with Thrawn?
Or maybe he was with Thrawn and
Yeah.
Ahsoka and
Oh, wait, no, no,
Sabine
no, no.
for him.
Or wait, is it Agent Callus?
Which this just begs the question,
Yeah.
should we do a Rebels rewatch before we watch Ahsoka?
I
Probably
think I think
should,
I think we
honestly.
should, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, but a lot to look forward to, especially coming off that trailer, lots of exciting hype moments in that. Something we
Oh,
also wanted to touch on. Oh, did you have something before?
yeah, I just remembered Agent Callus was with the Zeb, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
think that's what it was.
The recent addition to live action.
Yes. And he looked great! Oh my gosh.
He did, yeah. He looked awesome. And so additionally, there's some dates for the upcoming episodes. There's only what, 8 episodes total.
Mhm.
The first 2 of which both come out August 23rd. And so that'll be August 23rd for the first one, following uh on the 30th of, does that say June?
No,
Can't
August.
read that. August. Oh, AUG. Sorry,
AUG,
mine
yeah.
is very small.
Oh, okay.
And then the show concludes with the 8th episode on October 4th. So really, all in all, what is that, 6 weeks?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 weeks?
7 weeks?
Yeah.
Man, it's gonna go by so fast, and then
It's
we're
gonna go
gonna
by
be,
real fast.
even if it's good, we're gonna be sad.
I'm interested in run times as well.
Oh, if they give us those silly 30-something minute run times, I'm gonna be so upset. These
What
need to
if
be at
what
least 50 minutes.
what if there's an episode and Jack Black and Lizzo come back for one?
Oh, man. Jack Black and Lizzo, gotta love them, but not
Yeah.
not the not the best addition to
Oh,
Star
but
Wars.
we will I think there's rumored, or I'm not sure if it's confirmed, that Captain Rex will be played by Tamara Morrison at some point as
Yeah.
well, right?
I don't know if that is confirmed for Ahsoka or not, I should look that up, but
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure he will be appearing in future live action as
Yeah.
Rex. I don't know where we read that, but I
I thought
recall,
it was in Ahsoka, but I guess
maybe it
we'll
was,
see,
yeah.
yeah.
I
I don't know where
recall
else that
hearing
would
that
be,
too.
honestly.
One of the final questions that we wanted to pose for this podcast episode is, what our favorite rendition of Ahsoka is. As we mentioned, she first originally appeared in the Clone Wars series, and then followed up in Rebels. And actually, we've seen her in more stuff recently as well, like Tales of the Jedi, and even the live action series where she's portrayed by Rosario Dawson. Do you have a particularly, maybe, favorite Ahsoka in terms of the story, and
Mhm.
perhaps a favorite Ahsoka in terms of just the aesthetic, the look
Oh,
of
okay,
how
I like
she
that.
is?
I think I really liked the Rebels version of Ahsoka because she was more, I don't know, more in control. She knew exactly what needed to be done. I mean, she
Mhm.
fought Anakin in that way. Uh, but she was very, and I think she came in we really need to rewatch Rebels, but I think she came in as Fulcrum,
Yep.
as so and this is, and I think this is why probably I would choose Rebels first, is because I think I've mentioned before, I wasn't on the Clone Wars train when it first, came out. So I was very late to the game. In fact, so late that I think I watched Clone Wars and Rebels around the same time.
Mhm.
So it kind of all meshes together. But to see how she was there, and her design, she had the longer, I forgot what they call the tails that she has
Tendrils?
there. Tendrils, yes, yes. So she has the longer there, and just like her aesthetic, there are some people that weren't particularly fans of the Rebels uh art, or the way that the animated art, how they looked. I actually liked it. So I enjoyed how she looked there as well. So from the storyline, the fight with Vader was really cool. I think that
Mhm.
was the big one. But I will give a honorable mention to the Tales of the Jedi Ahsoka as well, because that fight with the Inquisitor was pretty incredible. So I do need to make mention of that too. What about you?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I like the Rebels Ahsoka, the story probably, and I would probably lump the season 7 Clone Wars
Yeah,
Ahsoka in with that too. I think there is an element of Ahsoka that when she is younger, she's not, like, annoying, but sometimes she does stuff where you're just like, "Ahsoka, come on,"
yeah,
especially
right,
in
yeah.
that early Clone Wars, like season 1.
Hmm.
But I think once she gets a little bit older, you kind of, um, you feel more the weight of her decisions in the last season of Clone Wars, and especially in Rebels
Right, yeah,
when she's fighting Vader, and, especially that last season of Clone Wars when she's learning of the betrayal of Anakin and just
right,
how this
yeah.
has all
Oh,
gone down.
we should
That's
rewatch
a good
that episode, by the way.
That's
We
such
should
a
just
good episode.
That
Yeah.
is such a good episode with the Order 66. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah. For anyone, by the way, that hasn't seen Clone Wars, the final season, which came out, I think, like, 3 or 4 years ago, something like that, is it runs congruent to Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And so you're basically seeing everything that happened in the 3rd, or I guess the 6th film, Episode 3. You're seeing all of that happen from the perspective of Ahsoka. So she has this fight with Darth Maul, meanwhile, Anakin is, doing the youngling thing at the temple, and it's just she's learning about this. So anyways, that last season of Clone Wars is fantastic. But also Gibbo telling us, "Oh, no, did I just spoil something?"
No.
Gi made a note to us that he hasn't seen. Gibbo, you need to watch season 7 of Clone Wars. It's
We
actually
we could
really
do
good.
we could do a reaction with Gibbo now,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
but, maybe too late.
Reaction, reaction, reaction. Speaking of reactions, we are planning on having reactions come back very soon. I know we did one last week or Joey did one last week with the trailer, but full episode reactions will be back for each of the episodes of Ahsoka, I would presume, definitely for the premiere and the finale. So
Yes.
be on the lookout for those as well. Last thing I would note on the Ahsoka variations, did you notice that the tendrils of Ahsoka are longer in the Ahsoka show than they were in The Mandalorian?
The
Like,
Ahsoka sh Oh, they are.
yeah, yeah.
Right, yeah, yeah.
If you look up a picture of Ahsoka from the episode where Mando goes to the magistrate,
Mhm.
they're, like, considerably longer than they were then. I feel like they got negative
Interesting,
feedback on the length of them and made them longer.
interesting. I'd have to go look at that. I'm assuming they just get longer with age, but
Yeah, I think
yeah.
normally, yeah. Yep,
Just
but
like your beard.
just like my beard. Who knows? I probably won't even have it next week. We'll see. But
Comment below if you think Ben will have a beard next week.
yeah. What are the betting odds? What are the gonna plus 250. Well, lots to be excited about. Ahsoka, I'm sure we'll discuss it much more in the coming 3 or 4 weeks, and then, of course, following that once the show has come out. But yeah, this has been a good one. What are you most excited about for with the show in general? If you had to pick one thing as we end off this podcast.
I am I wanna know, like, I mean, I think we have an idea now with what the actress that plays Sabine has said, that this is basically Rebels season 5, right? And
Mm.
we know how enjoyable Rebels series was, so I'm looking for that crossover. You know me, I like it when it interweaves with other things that we've seen, and I mean, it's kind of hard not to with this and Rebels because actually the characters there, but I'm just excited to see what more we can pull from, if it's Mandalorian or if it's from any other TV series or Bad Batch or whatever. Just can't wait to see, Tamara Morrison play Captain Rex for the first time. If that's we're gonna see here, I think that's gonna be very cool. So yeah, the dynamic between Ahsoka and Captain Rex has always been so great. So to see it in live action, I'm very excited for that as well. What about you? What are you looking for first and foremost in this show?
I want to know, I don't think we're gonna get the answer to one of the things I wanna know, at least initially. I want to know kind of what Ezra's status is.
Mhm.
Like, where's he at? What's he doing? That's the one that I don't think we're probably going to get an answer to. The other one is I just want to know more. I guess this is kind of a cop out answer because the show is just Ahsoka, but I just want to know more about her story.
Yeah,
Because, and this is one of the few times you'll see me tie something into the sequels, but we do hear her voice as one of the
that's true.
voices that calls out to Rey in that final battle with Palpatine. So,
Right.
she has to. She can't live forever. Is
Right.
basically what I'm trying to say.
I like that tie-in. Oh my gosh, can you I don't know how I would feel about that if we saw that happen live in either this
I would be so sad.
season or the next season or yes, but you are right. You are right.
Hopefully it's a Master Yoda death and not a Obi-Wan Kenobi death.
Right, just like kinda like tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I'm sleepy.
I must rest. Rest I must. Um, well, anything else on Ahsoka before we wrap this
No,
one?
couple just less than a month away or right? Or just a little bit over a month away, right?
A
So
little
let's,
over a month.
we gotta we gotta wait a little bit longer, but we'll make it soon enough.
It'll be here before we know it. August 23rd. I think that's like very close to the time I also start my master's program. So, uh,
Right? It's gonna be a good week.
yeah, be a
Lot of sleep.
busy week. Lots of sleep that week. Yeah, we'll see. All the Ahsoka episodes are streaming on Disney Plus once they come out, beginning on August 23rd. We're super excited for it. Next week's episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast, we're going to be doing something that I think we've kind of contemplated doing for a while, and we're excited to kind of fully be jumping into it now. We're going to be covering a Star Wars comic and then breaking it down as part of the podcast. Next week's comic, if you're watching the video version of the podcast, the one as seen on screen, it's a Star Wars The High Republic comic. It's this one here. Also, I have, for some reason on mine, it says There Is No Fear.
Oh,
I don't know
interesting.
why that's not on the graphic one, but yeah, that is the comic that we'll be talking about and breaking down as part of a potential High Republic series of comics that will be going over here on the podcast. So if you're a Star Wars comic book fan and you have any particular comics you want us to take a look at and cover and review, definitely let us know those down in the comments as well. Remember, as always, you can subscribe to the Hoth Hangout podcast on YouTube, inching closer and closer to that 150 subscriber mark. So we would really appreciate it if you are not yet subscribed. You can subscribe to the channel and check out the video versions of the podcast as well as all of our reactions over on the Hoth Hangout YouTube. And if you're an audio podcast listener, you can get your audio Hoth Hangout wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, or any other podcast platforms. Also, check us out on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok on all of those platforms at Hoth Hangout. I think the most recent Instagram picture was the from the episode that we did a few weeks ago, right, Joey? Where we posted a picture of, was it a Funko? Or no, it was a Boba Fett, wasn't it? A Boba Fett
Oh, no,
actually.
the Lando one? Did we post that
Orlando,
one?
not Boba Fett.
Yeah, yeah.
Orlando, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
Well
yeah, check us out on all those streaming platforms or social platforms, I should say. Were you gonna say something else?
no, I was gonna say, Lando and Boba Fett are very, very different.
I think they are on the same team, no? But yeah, that about does it for this one. Any last thoughts or comments, Joey, before we head off?
Well, welcome back, Ben. I'm glad to have you back, and hope you are happy to be back as well. But just happy to see your face and having some fun Star Wars discussions with you once again.
Thank you. It's good to be back with you, and always good to be talking some Star Wars. Big shout outs, as always, to producer Gibbo for all
Gibbo.
the behind the scenes and in the moment work that happens that goes into every podcast. I feel like Gibbo gave us a lot of good nuggets of information, especially during this podcast. So much loved, Gibbo. And for Joey and myself, thanks for listening to this episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast. And may the force be with you. We'll see you in the next one.